Hey everyone, this is Jason Dinger back with the third video in my How to Create Board Game Modules in Vassal tutorial series. In this we're going to learn about adding decks of cards and how to lock components in place using grids and zones on a board. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to the game piece prototype. Remember, previously we had a prototype for the cubes that we added. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to right click, we're going to drop that down and go to add a definition. In this case, we're going to name it Card Proto. Again, this is just something generic I'm using. You could call it whatever you want in your game. From there, we're going to go ahead and scroll down. We want does not stack. Remember, that's we don't want things. If I have a deck of cards and I pick one card up, I don't want all the cards to move with it. Stacking would do that. Then we're going to go add the marker. Marker name is layer. The value is card. This goes into what we did in the second video. So once we're done with that, we'll click OK. We'll save it. And now we've got that prototype ready for when we go to actually add cards. We'll go to our main game board. We're going to right click on it. We're going to go down towards the bottom and click Add Deck. So this is going to give us a window. We've got a bunch of properties we're going to go through here. First, we're going to add a name. I'm just going to call it game cards. Obviously, if you have a specific name for your cards in your game, you'll call it that. We're going to drop down until it belongs to the main board. The X offset and Y offset, I'm just going to use something generic, 200 by 200. I know it'll put on the screen where I can see it. Later on, once I've got cards in the deck, I'll be able to change that. There's a button down at the bottom, reposition stack. That's grayed out now. It'll be active once I start adding cards to the deck. So for right now, that's going to be good enough, the 200 by 200. So now we're going to do the size, the width, and the height. I know from my cards it's 750 by 1050. It's the size that I have. Again, you'll get that from whatever graphic software that you're using. Below that, we've got the ability to draw multiple cards. We're going to uncheck that. Maybe if you're drawing a hand of 4 cards, you're doing that. For this, we're just drawing one card off the deck at a time. So that's all we want to worry about. Below that, we've got the ability to draw specific cards. I guess, if you can pull a certain card out of the deck as a particular mechanic. We're not going to do that. We just want a deck of cards shuffled that we can randomly draw one off the top. Next, contents are face down. That's when they're in the deck. Draw new cards face up. We do want that. Reshuffle, it's set to always. This isn't the actual process of shuffling. You're not going to be seeing it in the game. This just means that every time we draw a card off the top of the deck, it's going to be random. If we drop that down, we have never. I guess if that was like a game like, say, Hamburgum, where cards are in a specific order by number and they never change. So you would have that. And then below that, we have with a right-click menu. We're just going to leave as always. That means we're always, every time we draw a card, it's going to be random. Reversible, we're going to uncheck. That's not something we're going to use. Draw outline when empty. I do like that. I'm going to pick like a pinkish, reddish color, just something I know that'll show up. We'll hit OK. We'll hit Save. And now we've got this folder down here, Game Cards. So there's nothing in it yet, but I can right-click. I can add a card by itself, or I can go down right below that. The third option is Add Multiple Cards. Add multiple cards is going to be better most of the time. It's going to knock it out a lot faster. But I want to show you how to do both, because in some games maybe you have just a single card you have to update to a deck, adding, or maybe a single card in a deck, like a reference card or something like that. So we're going to go up to Add Card now. We're going to click on that. We've got our basic piece. We've got our, that's the name and the image. We've got the mask. That's the back of the card, what you're looking at when it's face down. So we're going to go ahead. Before we get into those, though, we're going to go add our prototype. Click there. Card Proto is what we named it when we defined the definition of the prototype. So we're going to do that. OK. Now we'll double-click to bring up properties of the basic piece. We're just going to call this Card 01, just the first card in the deck. And as we did with the boards and the cubes, we'll double-click on this blank space here. It'll bring up, we've got our cards, or all our images of cards and everything. We can click that. Boom. You can see it's because it's a large card. If I scroll, I'm only going around the outside right now. It's there. I just want to show you. I don't want you to freak out if you don't see, but everything is there. You just have to scroll and see it. Then we go to the mask. So the two things here, we have the image, same as before. We're going to double click on that. And I've got like a simple parchment image that I'm using for the back of these cards. So we'll select that. And then we've got the display style. So you could have this as a number of different things. Inset would make it like a little small thing. I go with plain. That's just how it's going to look on the table when you flip it upside down. So now we're going to close all that out. If we go look at our folder for the game cards now and we drop it down, we're going to have our single card there. All right, we want to add the rest. We're going to right-click on the game cards folder. Once we do that, it's going to drop down the menu. and we're going to select add multiple cards there. So once you bring that up, we're going to select the image, the folder where the images are. Browse to that. Okay, and demo there. So get the folder, and it populates everything at the bottom with all these files are in there. I'm not going to use all that. Obviously, we're going to tell the ones we want to skip, but first we need to go set what we want all the cards to have. So we're going to go to our, let's scroll down here. We're going to put our mask on. All right, same thing as before. Double click, get the parchment background, tell it to display it as plain. All right, and then we need our prototype that we made. So we'll scroll and find it in the list. And we'll, tell it that's the card proto. So those are the only things that we need to add right now. The basic piece is going to be covered by the process of adding multiple. Normally, I would have my cards, segregated better in a folder by itself, so I didn't have to do all of this. But, for this quick demo, we've got it like that. So I'm unchecking everything that I don't want, including card 01 that I already added. So we're just going to go through and uncheck all these real quick. Once that's done, when I go over here, so you can see I only want cards 2 through 8, just those 7 I'm adding. When I click OK, it's going to fuss at me. It's going to say, hey, you're going to add these 7 cards. You can undo this. Do know you can delete them later one by one, but a mass undo you can't do. So you see here I've got all my cards 2 through 8. They have everything we need. I'm going to save it, but remember, because we added new art, we have to close the module down, relaunch it. You're going to see it will populate the art process up at the top. Now once that's done, we're going to load a new game. And we're going to have our deck of cards. Remember, it's sitting, oddly up to the top because I set the offsets wrong on purpose. I didn't calculate. It's faster to throw it there. But I just want to show you that now we have a deck of cards randomly. I'm drawing these cards off. They are just going wherever I put them. We're going to go ahead and fix that where they lock in a specific place. But first, we're going to reposition the stack. Now that we've got the module reloaded, we can do that. Double click. The reposition stack button is there. I'm going to enlarge that window. And I'm going to use my mouse to drag it, pretty much get everything out of the way. I can use my arrow keys, you can see here, but we're going to fine tune it with that. We're going to do the bulk of the moving with the arrow keys and get it pretty close, and then I'll use the arrow keys to kind of gently nudge it right into the place where I want it. When it looks good, then we'll go ahead and hit OK. Everything's good to go. We'll close that down. Go ahead and save it so we don't lose that. And now when I launch, you're going to see the deck of cards is exactly where I wanted them. Resize the screen there. And now when I drop them off, but they're still, wherever I set the card, that's where it's going to go. Now, maybe for what you want to do, that's fine. You can just, put them wherever. But I've got these 3 columns here I want the cards to lock into place at. So I can get them there, and again, maybe that's good enough for what you want to do, but I want to give you the option. I want to show you how to create a simple grid so that when you draw the cards off, the cards will lock exactly where you want in that display. So right there. So we're going to close that down. What we're going to do, we're going to go up to our map board, our main map board here. All right. We're going to right click on the map itself. We're going to go down. You've got a couple options. You can add a hex grid. You can add, a rectangular grid. We're going to add a multi-zone grid. This is just more flexible. I could get away with just adding a regular hex grid, or a regular rectangular grid here. But I do this because if anything changes in the game, I can adjust as I need. So we got the highlights. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to right click on the grid we just added, the multi-zone grid, and we're going to add a zone. So we do that, we're going to get a window. The zone name, I'm just going to call it card display. And then I'm going to click here to define it. So I want to define the shape of it. So again, we have to enlarge the window. That's just the default that Vassal does. And you can see right here, I can click and drag to create. You can left click to to move, right click to add points, delete to remove. What you can do though, if you click on a spot, hold the mouse button down and drag, you can create a rectangle or box, just a basic square or rectangular shape. So I'm going to do that. Obviously it's not big enough. I didn't scroll, but I want to show you how to adjust. This especially, you see the red dots on the corners? Those are the points I can move and I can adjust. So we're going to go ahead and drag these. We're going to scroll over and put them on the corners, at least pretty close for what we need. I don't need this to be perfect because later I'm going to put a rectangular grid inside this zone that's going to lock it. So drag that, and now we'll do the top right corner. And so that's pretty close. I could leave it right there. I don't have to mess with it anymore. We can close it down and save it. But I do want to show you how to fine tune it. So we can bring the properties back up for that grid. We'll go ahead and define again. And all right, hold on, let's resize it. So you see, set coordinates directly. If you know your coordinates, or if you don't know, you can pull this up, and you've got 4 sections of numbers. So one number is the X, or the horizontal, comma, then the next number is the Y. So that first one is that top left corner, the next one is the top right corner, then the bottom right, and then finally the bottom left. So you can see as it relates to each one. So what we're gonna do, if I drag this and move it up, I want you to see how that number changes. So now, see, now we've got 74. We don't want that. I'm going to go ahead and type it in. I'm going to make it, exactly what I want there. So the 148 to match the other one, and that's going to give me a nice straight line across the top, because now both the Y, or the top to bottom, point is the same. So maybe if I want to align that left side, there, I want to get it lined up, I can do the same thing. I could bring it up, type in the value, just, make them both the same instead of dragging to get it close. So I'm just showing here, you've got the 4 corners. The numbers are top left, top right, bottom left. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to click in here. We're going to set that to the 970, so it'll be the same, or excuse me, 973. So be the same, replace it. And now you see we've got a nice square corner there. We could do that over here, but it's really not that important that I have this exact. There's going to be times where you don't want it exact. We can just get it close because maybe you have an irregular shaped token or tile. So that's good enough. We'll save that. And now inside that zone, we're going to define a grid. I don't want the grid across the whole board because maybe I want other cards to lock in other places, cards of different shapes and sizes. That's why I'm using the zone. So the offset up here, I'm not worried about. I'm going to do that manually with the keys. The cell width and cell height is going to be the same as our cards. So that's going to be the 750 by 1050. Here we're going to drop down. We do want to show the grid. I'm going to change it to a color that's going to show up good, like a reddish color. Then we go here to edit grid. You're going to see, enlarge the window one more time. You're going to see it's off right here. So we're going to use the arrow keys just to bring it horizontally, bring it over to the left to line it up where we want it. Get it pretty close. I'm going to realize after the fact I went a little too far and I have to come back. But after we get that, then we'll set the Y position, the top to bottom line there. Once we get that set, I'll bring the X back over just a little to the right just to line it up. Now we're good. We'll save that, close it out, save the module. Now when I relaunch the module, you're going to see you've got that red grid. You probably wouldn't use the grid in the actual game. I just want it here so you can see. And now when I drop these cards, even if I don't drop them in the right spot exactly, it locks them exactly where I want them. So now even if I'm off to the side a little bit, when I let go, it's going to pull it back in. I can even grab more cards and drag them and drop them onto it, and they're going to lock them in the same place on top of it. So you can see, you can bring everything back to the deck. And you should know when you drop things back on top of a deck, it does reshuffle them because of how we set that. So we've got our deck of cards here that we can randomly draw off of onto our card display that locks the cards specifically in the areas that we want, so it looks nice and clean on our board. You can see up here the log we talked about in the last video, so it records everything so you can see what's happening as far as what your players or playtesters have done. We're going to close that down, and then a quick review of what we've got here. We've added our new prototype definition for the cards, so that makes things easier. When we add cards, we've added our deck of cards here. You can see how I did name the first card 01 with a space. It pulled the rest in, so I'm pull that up. When you have a large card, you see I have to resize that. Vassal just does it. The size of the art of my card is so big. If it's a smaller card, it wouldn't do that. So I just drag it down so I can see it. Then I'll double click it here, delete that space. Don't have to do this. I'm just doing this because I like the continuity of having it all look, similar there. It's all the same. Go ahead and save that. And then finally, we've got the multi-grid zone, the multi-zone grid and the hex grid inside of it that we've added so it locks our cards in place. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Thank you very much again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.